Hello everyone. Welcome to the community update call. Welcome. Let's wait for a few seconds when people joining. All right, I think we can slowly start while everyone joining. We have some time, and let me quickly remind you what is community update call is. The community update call is the initiative to bring contributors and community all together and check what is the last deliverables, what is the updates from the contributor side, and how everyone in community can contribute to the Lido DAO. Let me share a bit of background on the whole history of the community update call. First of all, last September, Lido DAO approved Goose framework, which is goal-setting framework to start setting the Lido DAO goals for the year and 3 year. And after the framework was adopted, there was the proposal from Hasu with the 1 and 3 years goals. After that, Lido contributor group was funded to deliver those goals. And first Lido community update call happens on April to check what happened during the first 6 months of the initiative. And after that, keeping in mind that everything changed really fast, there was the proposal to update Goose goals, which is called Regoose. You can see it here. It was in May, and today's community update call would be focused on the deliverables for the last 6 months from May to September. Just to quickly remind you the whole goals on one slide. We have 3 big 3-year goals. Lido DAO has effective decentralized governance. The second one, Lido attract the best validator set in the market. And the third one, STETH is the most used token in the Ethereum ecosystem. You can see all the key results which were proposed during the Goose cycle. And after the Regoose, a few more goals were added to participate in Ethereum staking roadmap research, support Ethereum Lite validator services, and make STETH the most utilized token in the restaking market. And this is actually the last update. And let's start, and we will go today from goal by goal, from 3-year goal to the next 3-year goal. We will start with the effective decentralized governance, and Kadmil, contributor of the DAO operations workstream, the floor is yours.
Hello. Let's get it on. So the first long-standing goal and direction for contributors and for Lido DAO is making sure DAO has effective decentralized governance. And like as all big goals, it has details. Namely, for 1-year goal under Goose, there are 3 main directions. Setting up new governance framework, which is Goose and its parts. I'll touch upon in a minute. Second one, but one of the biggest product changes in governance related stuff is dual governance. So dynamic time lock allowing STETH to effectively and vocally oppose and exit the protocol in case of malicious governance movement. I worthwhile to have exit gauge one way or another. And the last but not least is better governance rails, so operational part of DAO operations. And I actually would have some news and some things to tell about this as well. So, for 1 year goal, setting up a proper governance structure resulted in setting and DAO agreeing upon guided open objective setting exercise, which is like GOOSE for short, for laughs and memes. But anyways, the first round was voted on the last year. And for this cycle, already a year has passed, basically. The notice period of, okay, folks, there would be another window for this year's like goose adjustments or proposal submission had been shared on September 24th. Right now, on October 10th, the proposal submission period is open. And it will end in early November. So by November 9th, all the proposals shall be published on forum already. I saw a comment of Hasso, like basically sending a heads up that they would be up to sharing some thoughts in form of like potential goose update. So please keep this in mind. And basically, discussion period begins on November the 9th and would be followed up by the DAO-wide vote on picking the exact set of goals and basically continuing with that in mind. In a sense, when we talk about governance framework and when we talk about DAOs, we want to make sure the initiatives are transparent and graspable, and there is quite a lot of work contributors are pushing through to make it happen. So the state of affairs is visible, which is like first of all is made in form of community calls. Which we're having right now. Another thing to note is monthly governance reports on the research forum. So basically there is on research.lido.fi, there is a monthly posted update of everything which like went to a vote or preparing to went to a vote or whatever in regards to Lido DAO governance. And then there is scheduled quarterly scorecard updates. If you haven't saw it yet, scorecard is a self-assessment of like Lido on Ethereum state of affairs made by contributors and open for public in regards to things that Lido DAO and Lido on Ethereum like is either already kind of good at or needs some improvement. So this is the like checklist of things contributors are pushing forward, and like goals of the DAO should be focused on making better. So this is asynchronous resource you can check out, and well earned shout out to Node Operator community calls. There is a stream of monthly calls built together by NOM value stream, and like team, basically allowing updates across everything related to Ethereum validation and Lido on Ethereum validator side of things. So shout out to Node Operator management team. One of the parts of governance framework is called EGG. Basically, this is a template for contributors to ask for funding from the DAO. So the Goose works in a way that allows the DAO to agree on set of goals first, and then DAO opens up for like basically contributor teams or potential contributor teams asking for a budget to deliver upon those goals. The last request of such sorts is the Lido Contributors Group grant request V2. So those are the budget numbers for the second half of year of 2024, which had been approved by the DAO. Actuals for contributor group grant request V1 should be already posted on forum. And upon the end of this egg, actuals will be posted in forms as well. So keep that in mind and let's move forward. Second goal, which is like I'd say the biggest product goal for the operations value stream, is dual governance. Which shall result in STETH can participate in governance in one form or another. As I've mentioned a couple times, and as I've mentioned in the last call we had half a year ago, that's quite a lot of research going into that, basically rhyming the whole system to play together nicely. This April, the design and mechanism design for dual governance had been approved by the DAO. So what the next steps look like? The next steps actually look as follows. Right now, the code is under active audits and security checks by multiple third parties. The team is planning to set up a testnet for the whole mechanics in Q4. And potentially, fingers crossed, and depending on audit findings and third-party timings, we would be looking to make a deployment in Q1 2025. That's still a lot of work to get done, honestly, and a lot of research to pin down, to formulating code, to make sure the code itself is like well audited, well researched, well built. So contributors are working towards those at the moment. And as a last thing I wanted to touch upon is the goal of having better governance rails and operate with like enhancements towards that. And the biggest note to date about this one is that Lido finally has on-chain delegation switched on. So the on-chain vote to enable it has passed on August 24th. And we had already been like battle tested with these times on-chain vote, and to help with like actually facilitating delegations and delegate activity, there is public delegate platform and delegate incentivization program going on. So right now the question is how does it work? Both strategies for snapshot and on-chain votes allow the delegator to vote over the delegates' votes. So if you delegated to me and you don't vote, you don't like how I voted, you can always like use your own voting power in the same vote. So this is the like safety mechanics of sorts. Right now, the DAO has passed through like first delegate rally, and contributors are looking for first half year to pass for delegate incentivization program, but initial results look like this. There are 7 delegates, public delegates eligible for delegate incentives. And there is about 30 million LDO voting power worth delegated in total. So quite a start, but obviously there is a room for improvement. So that's it, and that ends with like the DAO operations value stream goals and everything which went towards enabling Lido DAO to have effective and decentralized governance. Thank you.
Thank you, Kadmil. Thank you. And partly answering the question, yeah, there would be Q&A part. You feel free to ask question on the chat on YouTube, and at the end, the speakers will cover all your questions. And now we are moving to the second one goal. Validator set value stream, are you ready? Will, welcome, floor is yours.
Thanks very much. So hi, everyone. My name is Will. I'm a contributor to Lido in the node operator mechanisms workstream, and kicking off here on the second Goose goal, which is attracting the best validator set. So this is the 3-year goal with the key results of implementing permissionless entry into the protocol, reaching a total of 5,000 node operators at least, having a performance effectiveness rating in the 80th percentile, and designing the protocol with risk mitigation and a free market for validation. In terms of the agenda for today, followed by myself, there will be 2 other speakers. And so the 3 of us will be covering the permissionless staking router module, which you'll hear lots about with the community staking module, the DVT staking router modules, which will be covered in simple DVT, and then programmatic exits, which will also be related to the community staking module. There's a couple other points here that are related to this Goose goal of attracting the best validator set, specifically around staking router marketplace. And so you'll hear more about that in future calls as there's updates to share. But diving right into the simple DVT module. And so for those of you who may need like a quick refresher, this is the second module that was added to the protocol with 2 goals of 1, adding more node operators to the protocol, especially solo and community stakers, and then 2, battle testing DVT, which at this point has seen a lot of traction and a lot of adoption, but has still not even reached a year on mainnet. I think SSV is approaching their year anniversary basically within the next few weeks. So some high-level stats around simple DVT. And the last time we did this call, simple DVT had just launched on mainnet. There was very, very few operators at that point. Following the completion of 3 test nets so far, with a 4th likely to end in the next few weeks, already 198 net new node operators have been added to the protocol. Next would be like my favorite stat on this screen, and that's 125 of those 198 are actually solo and community stakers. And so if we just like highlight these 2 numbers, right? If you back to a year ago, Lido had 37 curated node operators, all operating as professionals within the curated module. There was also 0 solo and community stakers. And so simple DVT is not even done. I would expect by the end of the year, there's something around 300 net new node operators that have been added to the protocol following these next 2 test nets. There was 0 community stakers a year ago. There's now over 100, and that number is going to continue to grow. The next, so far in the module, there's 1,531 active validators. So when the module initially launched, it launched with a 0.5% share limit. And that share limit was then increased after a proposal to expand the module to 4%. So at 1,530 validators, it's actually already surpassed that first 0.5% share limit, just slightly above. But we'll talk more about how scaling is progressing. You're going to see that that share increase pretty drastically, I think, over the next couple months. Within the module, it uses the DVT technology provided by the 2 main providers, SSV Network and Obol. So currently there's 35 Obol clusters and 26 SSV clusters. We'll dive a little bit more into those numbers in the next couple slides. This next one in the bottom middle. So I think this is one of the like most surprising in some cases and really, really exciting things that also happens to be on this slide. And so I talked about the initial goals for simple DVT, which was to add node operators and to battle test DVT. But through this battle testing process, the simple DVT module on itself is actually outperforming 8 of the top 10 staking protocols if you look at rated data. So this has many other liquid staking or liquid restaking protocols that are running their own nodes. It has centralized exchanges, etc. So there's a bunch of solo and community stakers partnered with professional node operators that are absolutely outperforming like some of the biggest names within staking. And this is all just within 7 months of the launch of the module on mainnet. So getting a bit more specific, and we're going to cover the Obol clusters and the SSV clusters. So Obol launched first on mainnet, and this was just due to the testnet timing. The idea is that both Obol and SSV will run the exact same amount of validators and clusters. So while there's a difference between these numbers now, that probably won't be true towards year end. But within Obol today, there is a first cohort of 12 clusters. And these 12 clusters are all currently running 80 validators each. And this first cohort onboarded 72 net new node operators. There's also a cohort 2. So this has 14 clusters. These 14 clusters onboarded 59 net new node operators to the protocol. There's an easy track pending currently that will increase their key limits to 40 validators. And then finally, there's super clusters. And so there are 5 super clusters within Obol, and they're on track to run 500 validators each. And what I think is really, really cool about these super clusters and fairly differentiated versus many of the other protocols out there, these clusters running like institutional grade number of validators actually have solo stakers in them, and they're extremely performant. We would expect to see the initial performance results published to the forums likely tomorrow, but just pulling the raw data today, it's really, really impressive. And it's fully in line with this fact I mentioned before, that SimpleDBT is outperforming 8 of the top 10 staking protocols. So to give like a sort of a little bit of a like elucidation on like the number of clusters and participants, in general, in the expansion of the SimpleDBT module proposal, it basically called for 72 clusters that are running in this normal format. So 36 of these with OBOL, 36 of these with SSV, and then 10 super clusters, which 5 are OBOL, 5 are SSV. And so within OBOL, we have cohort 1, we have cohort 2, the super clusters are up and running. And we've actually just finished the testnet number 4. This is the second SimpleDBT onboarding wave. 150 different participants went through the entire process of completing the testnet. The evaluation actually just took place, and somewhere around 30 net new node operators will also be proposed to be onboarded across 10 new OBOL clusters. And so with the 10, that would bring you to the 36 OBOL clusters. So stay tuned for more updates there. But I think the key point here is that more people are going to be running validators via Lido very, very soon. Moving on to SSV. So currently there's 26 LidoX SSV clusters running on mainnet. Similar to OBOL, we have 12 clusters in cohort 1. This onboarded 63 net new node operators. They're soon going to be running 40 validators each. There's an easy track pending there with another 20 or so hours to go. We have cohort 2, which has 9 clusters. You'll see here there's only 4 net new node operators that were onboarded. So the net new node operators for this cohort, because it happened at the same time as cohort 1, were prioritized for cohort 1. And what happened here was there was many of the participants from the OBOL testnet that also participated in SSV that were proposed to move forward. But the difference is going to be made up after the completion of testnet 4, which I'm going to talk about in just a second. But on the SSV side, we also have 5 super clusters. They're up and running. They're all running 10 validators currently, but we'll be on track to run 50 validators in the next couple of days. And again, similar to OBOL, the super cluster performance is really, really perfect. So that'll be posted tomorrow. But again, they're on track to run 500 validators and have their key limits likely raised once it passes the DAO discussion period. So I touched on this with testnet 4, but this testnet is ongoing. There's currently 168 participants that are running validators on Pulaski. And the difference here that I mentioned between cohort 2, cohort 1, especially versus OBOL, is that there's 15 clusters that'll actually be onboarded via cohort 3. And so I would expect to see at least 75 net new node operators onboarded across these 15 clusters with SSV. That'll likely happen. Like the goal is for that to happen definitely before year end, probably another month or so in terms of the testnet timing. And then there will be an evaluation process and then proposal to the DAO that'll take place in the forums once that's done. So another initiative that launched during this quarter, which I think is really, really cool and quite innovative, to be honest. It's called the Distributed Validator Vault. And so this was a vault that was launched and developed by Mello, who's a member of the Lido Alliance. And the goal here is to direct net new stake to Lido on Ethereum. So based on the way the staking router deposit like functions basically work, primarily this ETH and all of the ETH that has gone to net new validators has gone to SimpleDBT to date. But there's a proposal on the forum that just went live earlier today that also seeks to include CSM in the scope of this. And so the combination of helping CSM validators, which are solo and community stakers, helping SimpleDBT validators, which are also solo and community stakers with professional node operators, but utilizing a technology that's really, really good for infrastructure resilience and key security when used with DKG, as well as decentralization, I think is really quite positive. So stake from this vault goes to the protocol. It prioritizes based on the deposit mechanisms, these lower share modules, really helping to support the decentralization of the overall protocol. In return, vault users that go to Mello and check this out, and the QR code there is in the bottom right, receive points from SSV, they receive points from OBOL, and they receive points from Mello as well, in addition to Wrap Stake ETH rewards. So as I mentioned, the goal here is to help net new validators be created for these solo and community stakers or using DVT technology. And so people should just like sort of note that the goal is not to unstake your Wrap Stake ETH or your staked ETH and then deposit it, because that actually doesn't lead to net new validators. which is what they're seeking to do, right? To expand the number of validators that are using either a more resilient technology to help expand the number of new node operators and smaller node operators use the protocol. Currently, because of the difference between the size of the simple DVT module, which, as I mentioned, is above 1,500 validators, versus the amount of ETH within the vault, users of the vault are actually receiving a 9x point boost on OBLE. This is just different. Like the difference here is only because of the number of validators using OBLE in the module. But would highly encourage folks to go to SSV's website, to go to OBLE's website, to learn more about their contributions and incentives programs, and definitely to check out Mello as well. But to date, I think really, really strong results. This has led to 140 plus validators being created. These are validators, as I've mentioned, being run by solo and community stakers. And I think that's a really cool, positive thing. Finally, just touching on the next steps and like some potential ideas, I think, for what DVT can look like within the Lido on Ethereum protocol. So number one is really just about scaling the simple DVT module up to this 4% share limit. So you're going to see the 36 OBLE clusters running 80 validators, the 36 SSV clusters running 80 validators, and you'll see these 10 super clusters running 500 validators each. Now, once we get to that point, it actually probably doesn't fully reach the 4% share limit. What will likely happen is that the excess amount of validators will then go to the normal clusters, the ones running 80 validators. As within the original proposal, these clusters can run up to 100 validators without having the majority of the participants be advanced node operators. Advanced node operators will have future onboarding and sort of evaluations over the coming months, but I think that that's probably the first place that the share will likely go to. Second will be with boosting the adoption of DVT via CSM. And so you'll hear from Dimitri very, very quickly, after me about CSM. But I just want to highlight that DVT is a technology that you can utilize within the community staking module. You don't have to. You can go and set up a validator with your EL and CL and run it the normal way. But for those of you that have friends that want to work together, that want to participate in squad staking with either OBLE or SSV, I think this is a really, really cool opportunity to check out. I know from my perspective, I travel a lot, and so it's nice to have the peace of mind of, if my node goes offline for a couple hours for whatever reason, my validator doesn't stop attesting. And so I think this is something definitely to be on the lookout and to consider for those interested in using the CSM to run validators. Third would be the potential addition of third-party modules. So this is something that has not happened yet, but I would expect to see like within the coming months and years, like third parties come to the protocol and come to the research forum and propose new ideas for innovative modules that can utilize DVT. You can think of like permissionless entry via DVT. And I think there's some really cool things that over time you'll see with the protocol incorporating this. And then fourth and finally here on this slide is just that there's the potential adoption of DVT within the curated node operator set over time. The performance benefits that I've highlighted, just given the simple DVT module performance, I think are really hard to argue with. There's great advantages to resilience of infrastructure, as well as key security, though it needs to be used with DKG to really ensure that. And I think for decentralization, where you can imagine that you have better representation across geographies, across client types, across infrastructure types, this is really promising. So thanks for the time. And now you'll hear from Dimitri about the community staking module.
Thank you, William. What a great news about community stakers, but I do have a bit more of a great news. So you've probably heard me talking about CSM, but what you definitely never heard is a bit of my personal story of myself and my co-contributors. So when we started our work and research about community staking, about the community staking module more than a year ago, we already knew how community stakers are important for Ethereum and that this is crucial to add this permissionless entry to the Lido protocol. But what we never knew is that after a year of a dedicated work on research, on development, on community work, community staking would become something even personal for us. So right now, each day when I dedicate my time and my co-contributors dedicate their time to the development of the community staking module, we treat it as something slightly personal, I would say. So I'm very pleased about it. And now let's quickly walk through the key features of CSM. And the first and the foremost is that CSM is the first ever permissionless module in Lido, which means that with the introduction of CSM, each and every person would be able to spin up validators and to operate them with Lido protocol without need to pass through any assessment rounds or anything. It would be fully permissionless. You can stay fully anonymous. And yes, you would be able to do it. But this is not a unique feature, right? Many other protocols offer it. So to accompany for this permissionless feature, there's a bunch of other extremely cool things that I want to share with you today. And the first one from them is definitely the bond requirement, or the amount of ETH that node operators should deposit to get their ability to spin up a validator with Lido. And for the permissionless mode, it would be two values. You need to keep in mind only two numbers. The first one is 2.4 ETH to spin up a first validator, and then 1.3 ETH for the second and every other validator. And this is one of the, I mean, this is probably the best offer at the market because there's no additional tokens involved. There's no additional complexity involved. And the capital requirement itself is sufficient enough to ensure security of the protocol. And at the same time, it makes it super affordable for users to spin up as many validators as they want, or to enter validation if they've never been validating before with such a low capital entry requirements. And what is even better is that for the identified solo and community stakers, who are the part of the early adoption, which I would tell you more slightly later, the requirement for the first validator is reduced even lower to 1.5 ETH. That's an absolutely amazing feature, and I'm so happy that we ended up with all this research and risk assessments with this amazing numbers. But that's not it. What if you have the opportunity to spin up validator for less than 32 ETH, but you're not getting extra benefits out of it? Why would you do so? And that's why the second benefit is rewards. So if someone would be running validators with CSM, their APR multiplier or capital efficiency for their capital provided or locked as a bond would be increased up to 2.3 times, which is unseen. Like in any other protocol, no matter if it is risk staking, leverage staking, or any other type of staking, you would never see such a multiplier, and that would be the case for CSM. On top of it, CSM operators would benefit from EL and CL rewards smoothing across the whole pool of Lido validators, which brings their rewards closer to average value than to a median value. And as we all know, execution layer rewards distribution looks like an exponential function, which means that the average value is way higher than median. So this is also beneficial for that. And the final thing about rewards is a performance threshold, is a feature created specifically for community stakers, with taking into account the fact that community stakers, unlike professional operators, are not able to have this redundancy to have this extra machine or to have this extra backup software. And from time to time, their validators might actually go offline. And when designing CSM, we considered and invented this performance threshold, which basically means that if you are facing a short time outage, you would not see it being reflected on your rewards. So I would say that short time outages are allowed in CSM because CSM is a module for community stakers, and we think about community stakers when we design the module. And the last, but definitely not the least, as you all know, in the world of staking, the user experience might be challenging. It might be super challenging, it might be less challenging, but with CSM, I believe that CSM has arguably the best user experience in staking. It is super simple, super neat. You don't need any additional software or any additional things to do. It's just like running vanilla staking, but with cute interfaces, with simple on-chain interactions. You basically only need 2 transactions, just create your node operator and then claim your rewards whenever you want. And that's it. So with all these cool features, CSM is probably one of the best solutions on the market. So it is not just a permissionless module for Lido. It is not just yet another permissionless thing. This is the best permissionless solution from my perspective. And now let's talk about testnet and how it went. So the testnet itself was launched around 3 months ago. And at its peak, at the end of September, there has been more than 2,000 node operators. Yeah, there's an asterisk here for sure, because most of them were so-called Sybils, or node operators created by a single user. But at the end of the day, more than 350 independent node operators joined testnet. And this is absolutely amazing, given that the testnet itself was not incentivized, unlike testnets on the other protocols where you get points or tokens or airdrops. No, testnet was not incentivized. So all these participants, they participated purely to help Lido launch this amazing module. And you can see the other stats here, but I wouldn't go through all of them. I just want to conclude that testnet went super well. But building a community staking module is not just about tech. It's not just about running testnet and so on. It is also about community building. And I'm happy to share several interesting things about what Lido contributors did in terms of community engagement and community work. First of all, 2 major solo staker gatherings were held during 2024. The first one in Belgium during ECC, which was called Stakers Guild, with more than 150 participants or community and solo stakers attended this event. There was a bunch of interesting discussions, a bunch of cool networking, a bunch of great people participating. 4 machines for validations, like absolute monsters produced by Dapnode, were given away. CSM permissionless testnet was launched right at the event, and our participants, they were able to get a hands-on experience with the workshops from CSM integrations from our partners like Dapnode, Stereo, and so on, or I can say our friends. And there's definitely a cool video about this event, so make sure to scan the QR code on the screen and check it out. The second big gathering took place in Singapore during Token 2049 week. And we were so surprised to see how many solo and community stakers are in the Southeast Asia. They all were so involved, and they all were so happy to chat, to learn more about CSM, to share their experience in solo staking. And for sure, yet another Dapnode was given away, and we had tons of conversations, networking, and fun. But that's not it about community work. The next aspect of community work is community grants. And thanks to magnificent Lido community lifeguards, the community grants initiative for CSM resources was launched. In a nutshell, this is the initiative when people are offered a retroactive grants for their contributions, which help educate people, which help people interact with CSM and Ethereum validation in general easier. So I definitely encourage each and everyone to scan the QR code on the screen, because the database that we got as the result is one of the best compilations of solo staking resources, fine graded. You can literally find information about each and every aspect of solo staking, all presented in a simple and neat way, no matter who you are. If you are a reader, or if you're visual, or if you're a listener, you will find a resource for you here. And finally, the main thing that I want to tell is that CSM is anticipated to be proposed for the mainnet release as soon as November 2024, which means that in case of a vote pass, we will see this November, CSM being live on mainnet in the early adoption mode. And just a few words about the early adoption mode and what it is and why it is here. So the idea of the early adoption mode is not only to launch CSM as a permissionless module where not only community stakers, but each and everyone can participate, which would be the case for sure eventually. But the early adoption period is a period specifically tailored for community and solo stakers, so that during this period, only identified solo and community stakers would be able to join the module with the beneficiary bond conditions to ensure that they would not face any competition with the professional operators or with the large staking entities, meaning that each and every solo and community staker would get a chance to spin up their validators with CSM with no unnecessary competition. And as soon as spring 2025, we expect the proposal for the DAO to switch CSM into fully permissionless mode, which would put a final dot in this very long journey of Lido becoming permissionless. Thank you, and that's it from my side for today.
Thank you, Dmitry. Hello, everyone. I'm Roman with a few words about the EIP 7002 execution layer triggerable withdrawals, as known as triggerable exits. The IP introduced a mechanism for stakers to exit validators from the consensus layer using withdrawals credentials instead of relying on a validator sign key, effectively decoupling a validator sign key from the withdrawal key. This is a crucial feature for various staking protocols, reducing trust assumptions in delegating staking by enabling withdrawal credentials to retain control of staked ETH. Also, it's always a fallback option to retrieve your funds back to cold wallet on execution layer in case if you lost your secret keys from validators. Next slide, please. As you can see, in the current situation, validator's owner is the only one who can initiate exit by publishing exit messages on consensus layer side. But with Pectra 1 hard fork, next slide, a new precompile contract will be introduced, allowing the withdrawal credential address owner to send exit messages. Those new exit messages are regular Ethereum transactions with the precompile contract address as the target and indicate intent to exit a validator. Next one. So next points are about how triggerable withdrawals can be used in the Lido protocol. First of all, it's better risk management by reducing trust assumption on Lido node operators, which is crucial given the upcoming mainnet launch of the first permissionless model as a part of the Lido protocol. Second, with the implementation of triggerable withdrawals, it's possible that there will be no stuck validator keys. It means no delays in finalizing withdrawal requests, which stakeholder will benefit from. And third, validator withdrawals can be safely automated. As opposed to storing pre-signed exits, withdrawal contracts can have complex rules governing validator exits. Next one. So when will it be? Triggerable withdrawals is planned to go live on the Ethereum network in February 2025 as a part of Pectra 1. The current status of the triggerable withdrawals implementation of the Lido protocol is following. First of all, technical and operational flow design is proposed. Draft of specs is ready. And Lido contributors currently working on the code prototyping. That's all about the triggerable withdrawals on the current and the current progress so far. Thanks.
Thank you, Roman. Thank you, guys. Thank you for those great presentation. And moving to the last part, last goal, I would ask Yakov to tell us a bit more on the Let's Go. STETH is the most used token in the Ethereum ecosystem. Welcome.
Hello everybody. My name is Jakov, master of DeFi, and pretty much my role revolves around basically making STETH not only the most used token with a lot of utility and attractive opportunities to utilize it, but also most accessible token. But by making it available in as many accessibility points for Web3 and as many networks as possible. So the key results for 3-year goals is that 50% of stakers are choosing to stake with Lido, at least 50%. Network rewards for staking APR in 19th percentile, and it's top 3 most used trading pair in real volume. That there will be 0 incidents with monetary impact to stakers, and institutions will be using Lido to stake. So that's ambitious 3-year goals. For 1-year goals, the key results are more specific. In terms of education, the goal is to educate broader Ethereum community about STETH as a public good, improve user branding and protocol engagement. The goal is also to use the channel approach, to redesign channel approach and enable faster adoption than the organic staking market growth rate. In terms of liquidity, it's important to deploy liquidity to the most efficient use for driving centralized exchange listings, on-ramps, and custodians, etc., which at the same time also make STETH accessible to everybody. In terms of network expansion work group, it's really important. Sorry. It's important to make Lido STETH the #1 collateral in the restaking market, allowing stakers to opt into additional points on the risk and reward spectrum. Another initiative is bring your own validator using staking router module. In terms of institutional staking, establishing STETH, the staking token, as validator module of choice for institutions. I believe this is on Maria, right?
I'm quite sure it's also on you, but all right. You can comment, or we can just keep in mind that there are a few initiatives which is delivered on the decentralization and security from the value stream.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of decentralization and security, there's a launch of a beta version of Lido SDK, which is really important when it comes to pursuing further integrations into different types of projects and protocols, especially important for integrations with wallets, custodians, and different types of access points. And basically anybody who wants to utilize any type of functions that are consumed on Lido staking widget for on-chain or off-chain use, that can be done through Lido SDK. There's also launch on Lido on Sepolia testnet. The protocol has been deployed on Sepolia and serves both for Lido multi-chain and trust minimization for accounting Oracle projects development. So for example, projects that are trying to, like different ecosystems where Lido STETH can be expanded, can utilize this deployment on Sepolia to test and simulate the future mainnet deployment on Sepolia first before that goes into production. At the same time, the process for updating the main repository with the protocol smart contract is completed. That includes removing outdated frameworks, improving test coverage with the addition of fuzzing and invariant testing, and updating the documentation and deployment scripts for setting up protocol from scratch. Lastly, Okay. Lastly, the negative rebase protection, LIP 23, was developed, audited, and voted by Lido DAO on Sepolia and Holeshki testnets. Delivery to the mainnet is planned in Q4. We can move on. In terms of metrics and statistics for staked ETH, I want to really clarify and not to make everybody afraid that to this first stat that changes in TVL is minus 28%. Majority of that, actually all of that negative change is actually due to the dollar value drop of ETH as an asset itself. So when we take a look in April 2024, the TVL was 33.9 billion. In September was 24.1. But when you take a look at the actual amount of staked ETH, in April it was 9.6 million, and in September it was 9.8 million, which is actually appreciation of 1.32%. When it comes to the unique ETH depositors and staked ETH unique addresses, the results are also pretty good. For unique ETH depositors, the change is a positive 19%, and for staked ETH unique addresses is even higher, it's 23%, which makes asset distribution more decentralized. In terms of DeFi and in terms of liquidity pool specifically, especially, we see a drop. That drop is for a couple of reasons. The major reason in terms of liquidity pool drop is that a lot of staked ETH that was actually used as liquidity got repurposed into multiple different places with new utility for staked ETH. We'll go through some of them, but also we have to consider that in this period from April and September, a lot of opportunities in restaking where staked ETH holders could deposit staked ETH were also open and pretty attractive, which means that a lot of liquidity providers decided to switch their positions into some of the LRTs that support staked ETH deposits. In terms of staked ETH DeFi share, it's more or less stable, same as with lending pools, it's around 0%.
Thank you for metrics. Yeah, regarding the institutional staking, Keen.
Super. Thanks, Jen. Hi, everyone. My name is Keen. I'm a contributor to Lido, and I focus on institutional staking and Lido Institutional. So really, the mandate for Lido Institutional is to grow adoption of STETH among institutional users. So by that, I mean crypto funds, asset managers, really anyone who has a significant amount of ETH, and we would encourage them to stake with Lido for the obvious reasons of liquidity and capital efficiency. And the second part of our focus is on integrations, so getting STETH listed on different exchanges, and then also around a native staking integration with different custodians, QCs, MPC wallet providers, and tech partners. So you can see a couple of logos on the screen right now. So you have Ledger Enterprise, and the real focus with Ledger has been on enhancing that collaboration and deepening that relationship. And the second logo you should see is Fireblocks. So we really believe Fireblocks is going to play a key part in growing the Lido institutional ecosystem. So with the integration with Fireblocks, clients can go on the Fireblocks console, select Lido as a staking provider, and natively stake their ETH. And what's really cool about that integration is Fireblocks has also enabled their off-exchange function, which means STETH can be used as collateral on Bybit and Deribit. So a lot of things are really happening at the moment, and we're laying quite a strong foundation for institutional staking and making sure that institutional users see STETH as the gold standard for liquid staking. And the final point I'll touch on quite quickly is our focus as contributors around STETH and adding STETH to existing ETPs or creating new STETH ETPs. So we're definitely on a mission right now to gather as much research and information as we possibly can from relevant issuers and institutions to see if that's a possibility. So yes, I hope all this information was helpful and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Just a reminder, you still can ask questions, and we will have a few more minutes after all presenters to cover it. And moving back to the DeFi and accessibility.
There's a lot of exciting stuff that happened in terms of DeFi and accessibility from April to September, split in a couple of different categories from lending markets and perp dexes and derivative protocols, which fall into DeFi specifically, towards creating utility in terms of equalizing ETH and rep staked ETH or staked ETH usage on chain as a gas protocol. Towards pure accessibility, towards Lido staking and staked ETH. So starting off with DeFi side, there was a pretty significant push together with Chainlink and Ethena on Arbitrum side to get integration with GMX. A new market was launched, ETHUSD market, based on two reward-bearing assets, Lido rep staked ETH and Ethena USDE, based on new Chainlink streaming price feed. That's a really important integration, as GMX is one of the biggest and the most important protocols in the Arbitrum ecosystem. Along with that, rep staked ETH denominated trading pairs on perp dexes, SYN futures, and RFX are also launched. In terms of Aave, as the biggest lending market in general, Lido instance or Lido isolated market was launched on Ethereum mainnet. Currently, it supports 4 different assets, obviously Lido staked ETH, ETH, USDC, and Sky USDS. The difference between a main market and a Lido isolated market is that on Lido isolated market, there are only assets that isolate risk in the way that is coordinated and aligned with what Lido rep staked ETH needs in terms of, for example, recursive staking. There is no way for others to tap into the liquidity of ETH unless that is allowed by the isolated market itself. So at the moment, users can freely use rep staked ETH to borrow ETH and then restake or stake that ETH, supply it again as a collateral, and repeat that until the interest rate goes higher than the actual supply rate plus rewards of Lido rep staked ETH. Or they can, for example, go long on ETH by depositing rep staked ETH as collateral and borrowing one of the supported stablecoins. Current TVL is around $650 million. Along with Aave, news on the compound side, rep staked ETH can be used also to borrow USDC on multiple L2s, Optimism, Scroll, Arbitrum, and Base. When it comes to utility creation and usage of rep staked ETH as a gas token, there are 2 major integrations that happened between April and September. One of them is enabling rep staked ETH as a gas on cluster chain abstraction protocol. What that means is essentially that any user who uses cluster to connect its wallet can pay with rep staked ETH on any supported chain as a gas. And since cluster is built on top of Chainlink CCIP technology, cluster supports all of the officially recognized L2 networks where rep staked ETH is available. So pretty much, if you want to use rep staked ETH as a gas token, you can use it on any supported L2 network. On the ZK Sync side, situation is a bit different because ZK Sync supports natively different tokens for paying as gas. TX Sync is a protocol native to ZK Sync. There is an integration for rep staked ETH, and users can use rep staked ETH to pay for any transaction, and also can use rep staked ETH to pay for gas when bridging, actually onboarding to ZK Sync network from Ethereum mainnet. In terms of accessibility, there are 4 major integrations that happen in this time period. Infinex is a pretty new project, which basically is a smart account, smart wallet, non-custodial fashion that allows staked ETH and staked ETH deposits, plus also staking, and it has a potential to become one of the main players in terms of improving user experience by abstracting many different actions that users can use on Web3, like trading, swapping, staking, using different wallet protocols, even gaming. In terms of 1inch, I don't think it needs much explanation. It's the most popular DEX aggregator. It also has a wallet and portfolio app that now support Lido staking. So if you're a user of the wallet and portfolio app, you can seamlessly deposit your ETH assets in the portfolio to Lido, and also watch the staking rewards accrue. Router protocol is a protocol that enables anybody to stake from many different L2s. As Lido staking is actually natively only available on Ethereum mainnet, if you want to interact directly with core protocol, users have to rely on third-party integrations to actually be able to stake from L2s and different L1s. Of course, you can always use DEX liquidity to do the same thing. But for example, if you want to stake in size, or maybe if your protocol relies on staking, then you might want to consider alternatives like router protocol that can give you more stable quote than relying on DEX liquidity and potential slippages when trading. And lastly, again, I think Zerion as a name when it comes to portfolio and dashboards does not need a lot of interactions. The good news is that Zerion users can now also seamlessly stake from the Zerion application. When it comes to restaking, restaking being the most popular thing in the past period, share of staked ETH in restaking in general is around 25%. That's data from the October 1st, where staked ETH share in LRTs is around 20% or $2.2 billion. Which means that majority of staked ETH is actually in LRTs, and only a small part is restaked directly to either Symbiotic or Eigenlayer. There are also some other smaller protocols like Karak, but majority of this TVL is based on Eigenlayer and Symbiotic. Restaking, as previously mentioned in the general metrics, is a very attractive new utility for many different asset holders, but majorly ETH-based asset holders, which also includes, obviously, staked ETH holders. And since a lot of opportunities are available for staked ETH deposits, and some protocols are also helping Lido growth by converting ETH deposits to staked ETH before restaking, it helped to attract around 9,000 new users. Also, staked ETH used in restaking attributed to around 397,000 ETH staked in terms of growth. Mellow, as one of the protocols inside Lido Alliance, accounts for 17% of staked ETH with its vaults. And a very important fact to mention is that staked ETH is the main token used on Symbiotic. Has a bit more than 60% of share in terms of different tokens staked. And lastly, Lido and L2 is actually rebranding to Lido Multichain, thanks to one of the new chains that recently launched. It's BNB along with Mode, but BNB is basically the first network that is officially recognized that is not Ethereum L2. there was quite a process to actually enable that, thanks to a pretty detailed and pretty thorough process where Wormhole and Exceler built a multi-bridge solution to make what is now a canonical bridge between Ethereum BNB and BNB for Repstake ETH specifically. This is now possible. For other L2s, the situation when it comes to bridging is, we can say, simpler, because Repstake ETH can be bridged using the canonical or native bridge that is also used for posting the state from L2 to Ethereum. Why is it important to use the multi-bridge solution in case of BNB? Majorly for security, as most of the Lido contributors like to call themselves security obsessed. This is a very good example. Why is it like that? Multi-bridge solution does not pose any vendor lock-in, neither it poses any reliance on the closed source or proprietary code base. It's fully open sourced, audited, and currently reliant on two really popular and battle-tested message passing providers, Wormhole and Exceler. If DAO voters decide, these message passing protocols can be replaced or rotated by a DAO vote. So when it comes to the staked ETH market share among all tokens, optimism here is definitely the king. Arbitrum has received a drop recently. Base is staying really good, especially considering the native LST asset on Base by Coinbase, CBETH. Lido staked ETH is actually having higher share and amount of integrations on Base compared to CBETH. On zkSync Era, the numbers are really good. I already mentioned Repstake ETH is basically coming really close when it comes to ETH on zkSync, because users don't really have a need to code ETH at all on zkSync. Everything that they can do with ETH, they can also do with staked ETH. And this is the goal for all of the networks. The goal is that nobody actually has to use ETH as an actual user. Everything that can be done with ETH should also be possible with staked ETH. One really important news is staked ETH on Optimism. So it's really, really a good thing to emphasize while we're on this slide. So far, we were always talking about Repstake ETH. Repstake ETH on L2s. Even when we were mentioning staked ETH, it was basically just simplifying. But all of the integrations on L2s and L1s like BNB were actually handled by Repstake ETH. Why is that? Because Repstake ETH is the one that is composable within DeFi. It's a non-rebasable token, and most of the demand so far came from DeFi integrations. So naturally, it made sense to pursue bridging of Repstake ETH. But staked ETH as a rebasable token, it's available on Ethereum mainnet as well. Staked ETH, for users that want to use Lido as a staking middleware, as a staking service, and don't really care about DeFi composability, can be a better asset. Why is that? Because if you're holding some amount of staked ETH in your wallet, every day you actually see that rebase happening inside your wallet, and you see a balance changing, which is definitely a better user experience than holding an asset with a fixed balance that just changes in value. Also, staked ETH on Optimism allows for new use cases. For example, centralized exchanges are only integrating and actually listing staked ETH. So currently, if you're using centralized exchanges that support staked ETH, your only option to go on-chain is to withdraw to Ethereum mainnet. And then if you want to experience cheap transactions, or if you want to utilize some of the protocols on L2s, you have to go from mainnet to this specific L2, which again is not very good user experience, and it's also costly. So staked ETH on Optimism was voted in as part of the LIP 22. And when it actually launches on Optimism, this will enable us to educate broader community of projects to think of new use cases aside of integrations with centralized exchanges and potentially custodians that also usually integrate rebasable asset.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing all that, and also want to congrats team that on-chain vote, which is proposed to have rebasable STETH on Optimism, is reached quorum during the main phase today. Thank you, Yakov. And we are a bit out of the time, but anyway, I would propose to have short 5-7 minutes Q&A sessions. I see at least 2 questions in the YouTube chat, and I would propose to start with them. And if there would be one more, we will cover this also. The first one is probably the question to Will. And the question is, any discussions about the next generation DVT module beyond simple DVT1?
Yeah, sure. So I think that the main thinking here is that simple DVT always was launched with the intention of having more permissionless DVT-based modules in the future. Both SSB and Obel like publicly have said that they're interested in continuing to develop around Lido and like exploring possibilities, whether it is modules or integrations around CSM. And so I think especially with the CSM launch coming up over the next couple of months, all the experience that's been gathered on testnet, there's probably like some exciting stuff that will, I think, start to come to fruition more from like a execution perspective in 2025. But when those things do like sort of come to fruition, or if these protocols are working on things, like again, it would have to go through DAO governance, and there would be proposals to the DAO to sort of consider that. So nothing to necessarily share on that standpoint yet. But we just highlight that both Obel and SSB have talked about like their interest in continuing to integrate further into Lido, and I like would be optimistic and I'm personally hopeful that there will be some like cool innovation around that side.
Thank you, Will. Thank you. And the second question is to the Keen. During the institutional breakdown, ETPs were mentioned. Can you go a bit deeper on what they are and why we want to develop that aspect?
Sure. So there's a number of Ethereum staking ETPs right now. I think 21 Shares has one and a couple of others, but the big issue with existing Ethereum staking ETPs is that typically you're quite limited in the amount of ETH that can be staked. So I believe in the case of kind of 21 Shares and others, it's typically only 50% of the A. For that is, and these issuers are concerned about redemptions, especially if there's a black swan event, they won't be able to execute the sell orders to give clients back their money. And of course, the big benefit of using STETH is that it's 100% staked. So the benefits from the issuer's point of view is they have a better product. The benefit from the fund that invests is that all their capital is put to work. So to put it simply, we're obviously having conversations with a number of issuers. We're trying to learn as much as we possibly can. And that's been the big takeaway so far, that if a STETH ETP was created, it would be a far superior product in the sense of 100% of the AUM is staked.
Thank you for the answer. And I would propose to finishing our call. Thank you everyone for coming. Want to remind everyone who are watching it right now and who will watch it later that any questions you have, you just can come to the Lido Research Forum and ask at any proposals. Contributors are really active there, answering all questions, providing all details, and happy to have feedback from you guys. Thank you everyone for coming. It was great. Thank you for your contribution to Lido DAO and for today's call.
Thank you, Jen.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.